Let's fight. Welcome in the ring, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to each and every one of you. Those of you home here in Guyana, and those of you who are joining us in the diaspora. We are tremendously grateful that you guys join us each and every evening, night after night, for what again my colleague Randolph Critchlow calls credible and valid information. We want to give you as accurate information as possible so that you can make decisions that matter. You can make decisions that matter, folks. That is what this is about. Welcome in the ring again. Let's fight. For those of you who are joining us on Twitter, we are privileged to have you. We're privileged to have your tweets. Privileged to have your comments, guys. Those of you joining us on YouTube, we're privileged again that you could be here with us night after night. We see you guys. We see you. And Facebook, our favorite place. Facebook. We're happy to have each and every one of you. And today on Facebook, I celebrated a milestone on my Facebook page. 60,000 followers on my Facebook page. And I've been coming up. Coming up to 5,000 on Twitter, coming up to 10,000 on Instagram. Coming up, folks, just because of you. Thanks for all of you guys who follow me on my Facebook page. Give the page a like as well. Don't just follow. You gotta like what you see. Privileged to have each and every one of you. How was your day, folks? How was your day? Trust you had a good day. Trust that you earned the pay. And at the end of the month, you don't have to give back some of that money. I thank God for each and every one of you who make this program what it is. For those persons who are joining us on YouTube, again, our heartfelt thanks for all of you joining us on YouTube. For those of you guys who are joining us on Twitter, we love each and every one of you. Again, we're going to hold until we touch that magic number this evening. We see that we're creeping up there very, very quickly. And we are ready to go, folks. We are fired up at this end, and we are ready to go. Lots of information to walk you through. We have a couple of guests who are going to be joining us. For instance, we're going to be joined later on this evening by Vince Roy Jordan from Region 5 and 6. We're going to be joined by GCOM Commissioner Vincent Alexander is going to be in the house. Is going to be in the ring this evening, pelting some punches. We look forward to having him, and we invite you guys, as we do every night, to share the live stream. We are going to also introduce a new segment as well this evening, and we hope you guys like it. We're going to wait for the others to join us while we give some folks a shout out who have joined us already. And again, we have mixed things up again in the studio to give you a little more clarity and all of that. And so if you see me looking different places during the show, don't be distracted too much. I'm just ensuring that we have all that we need to give you a very, very comprehensive program. Folks, I see Mimi Hendricks, Abad John on my page. I love Mimi. Gavin Holder and Pamela Saturine and Donna Rogers, Bernadette, Mavis. Good evening to all of you guys. So nice to have all of you on the live this evening. Good to have you ringside. Ringsiders, we love having you on the program. You guys make the program what it is. We love having each and every one of you. We value you guys because we see value in each and every one of you. We invite you guys to share the live stream. Some of our guests are already coming in the studio backstage virtually, and we want to get through our hot topics as quickly as possible before our guests join us. So we're going to walk through our hot topics very, very quick, and then we're going to have our guests who I see are already joining us backstage. And I see one gentleman is powdering his nose, ensuring that he is set to come on, looking dapper. So let's walk through our hot topics quickly. I see us getting up to our numbers, but I say to folks, if you come late, you might miss something quite important, and we're not going over anything, It's one walk from start to finish. One walk from start to finish. Folks, I am ready to walk you guys through our hot topics this evening. Are you guys ready? I am so ready. I am so ready to walk you guys through these hot topics. Hope you guys had a really good day. A restful day, a peaceful day. The Siddhartha says that we must avoid loud and aggressive people. They are a vexation to the spirit. So we hope you guys have had a good day. We hope so. We truly hope so. Guys, let's get to our hot topics for tonight. Quite a few things to walk you guys through. Quite a few things. We noticed that the First Lady had what is called charity. And this is tea as in the sipping tea. It was a dressed up, dolled up affair. Why wasn't I invited? My money isn't good enough. That being said, kudos to the First Lady. We noticed too that quite a bit was raised as the First Lady endeavors to eradicate poverty. And DPI did this story. And in the photograph that they used, I noticed that the First Lady is absent. I see a lot of ministers being featured, but our First Lady's absence. I was wondering whether our First Lady has changed and we didn't know it, or perhaps the ministers attending the event was more important than the First Lady who hosted the event. I hope nobody has pulled a fast one on us and our First Lady has gone missing. I love this First Lady. I love me some First Ladies. I loved Mrs. Granger. I like this First Lady. I like this First Lady. So I'm going to be following what she does. But I think when we do a story of an event that the First Lady is hosting, the First Lady ought to be in the lead photograph. The lead photo. I think it is remiss of DPI not to put the First Lady in the lead photograph of a story that centers around the First Lady. Unless DPI knows something that we don't. But we're following that. Folks, there are more protests that are being had because every day people are realizing what a fraudulent, illegitimate, installed administration this is. And last evening, we told you guys of the Albion Blairmont workers, sugar workers, who were protesting. They're tired of the government. In their words, they're tired of the foot dragging on wage issues. And today, the IFLOT workers, sugar workers, came out. Again, they were saying that they are accusing the new management of Gaisuku of not putting them first, of not putting the workers first. Where did we hear this before? Oh, perhaps it was former President Donald Ramotar who came out swinging against the new Gaisuku management and their performance. So the workers at the IFLOT estate have joined the sugar workers' protests 6 months into the new administration. Yep. And every night, we can perhaps bring this entire program under the subject, Guyana is not a real place. Especially under this illegitimate, fraudulent, installed administration. So we told you last evening of the press conference that Roy Baypat of Giftland fame had and did not invite Gordon Mosley. Well, Gordon wasn't having it. So Gordon took this to social media to state the irony of the situation is that he has never attended any of Giftland's press conferences. And he was adamant, never. He closed off his Facebook post by saying that absent must he make the heart grow fonder. And that is why BPAT, paid specific attention to him. Yep, that is the 411 on that. We see the fraudulent administration continues. They're witch hunting. They are judge, jury, and executioner all in one. Our parliamentary colleague Ganesh Mahipal was dismissed from the Ministry of Local Government without being heard by the Public Service Commission. And so to hell with natural justice. Welcome back, PPP. Turning our attention now to health matters, ladies and gentlemen. Last evening, we pointed out the severe drug shortages at several institutions, including the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, several health centers throughout the country, and just today we learned that also at the Linden Hospital complex, where Rudy Small, the lewd CEO, Rudy Small, is head, they're also experiencing severe shortages of medication. So while medicine is in short supply there, Rudy, plenty. Yep. And for our close-up segment this evening, we invite my parliamentary colleague, my friend and brother, my twin actually, Vince Roy Jordan from Region number 5 and number 6 that he supervises. I think I caught him a little off guard here. Welcome in the ring, Vince Roy. How are you doing? Go ahead, Vince Roy.
Good evening. Sure, do you hear me?
Good evening, sir. Yes. Vince Roy, let's get right to it. We know that there's a lot of action happening on that West Coast corridor that comes under your supervision as a member of parliament, especially as regards local government. And you were on with us a couple days, if not a few weeks back, talking about the protests, for instance, that was happening at the Rossignol market there. And then subsequent to that, we had several members of the Rossignol NDC. I think it shares the NDC with a neighboring community there. 5 or 6 of the councillors there resigned. Tell us a little bit about that and what has happened since, Vince Roy. And I'm going to advise you to put your phone or whatever additional device you have there on mute, because we might get a feedback.
Right, I just did that, sir.
Go right ahead, Vince Roy.
Yes. So, just to recap, indeed, we had a situation at the Rossignol Saturday market, whereby a number of vendors were deprived of having stalls along the Rossignol Stelling public road, and they were forced to leave the road early one Saturday morning by police and the market committee chairman. I intervened in the matter, and those councillors those members, persons were allowed, vendors were allowed to ply their trade for the day, and I spoke with the members of the council, that is the Rossignol Zealous NDC, and they agreed that it was an unfair manner to just come and move the vendors from the road without making provision in the market, that when you put them there, they will be comfortable. As a matter of fact, I ensured that I walked the market before I actually spoke with those councillors and the market committee chairman and those who are responsible for the removing of the vendors. And when I checked the sites, there were deplorable stands. There were some vendors who were placed in there with their produces on the ground. Some doing grocery, it was on the ground. Some doing clothing, and it was on the ground. So there was no provision made by this council to move these people from the public road in the first place. So I said to them in the presence of the regional vice chairman, we cannot make such a decision early one morning when we wake up, or probably if the dictator Nigel Damla calls you overnight, you wake up and you just decide that, look, we're going to go and do this XYZ today. It has to be done in a systematic way whereby you make the necessary provisions, and then you give the notices, and then you roll out it in a way that it runs its course, so people understand beforehand that they have to move to this particular date. Subsequent to that, the members of the council, they had a meeting probably among themselves, and they decided that what they were put to do by Damlal, that is to remove the people from the public road forcefully, was something wrong. And so they said they will not tolerate Damlal dictating what happens within
fraudulency.
The fraudulency, correct. And so what they did in retaliation is to stand up to the man. He subsequently came to West Berbice again, and they held another meeting with the vendors. The vendors again raised their concerns, and they said, look, We don't have a problem going into the market, as I was saying all along. You need to make the necessary provisions first. Damlal again instructed that the people must move and just stated that they will make the necessary provision. The council was understanding that the council has no way of meeting that demand at the date that was set. Decided to cut ties with the council because they know that they will be doing the people an injustice. And so they decided to write letters of resignation in their own handwriting and
in their own deliberate judgment.
Right, in their own judgment also. And they submitted same to the clerk of council, who is the overseer. And after submitting those, it means that they would have resigned from their position, and that included the chairman of the NDC, the vice chairman of the NDC, the chairman of the works committee, the chairman of the committee, and 2 other councillors. So you understand what I'm trying to, the entire council there, where it was structured by those PVP councils, actually was dismantled. So subsequent to that, the council had its statutory meeting. And at that statutory meeting,
Vincent, just before you go there, I want to welcome your colleague Chris Wordsworth, who is joining us to shed some light on the very situation.
Correct. Thank you.
Chris, welcome. A very good evening.
Thank you, Sharon. Good night. Good night, Prince Roy. Good night, AP and EFC.
Good evening.
Right ahead, Vince Roy.
Right. So Sharon, the thing is, at that statutory meeting, the 6 councillors could not have been present because they would have already resigned. You get me there?
Yeah.
And so because they would have already resigned, they were absent from the statutory meeting. And 2 of the PPP councillors, they were present. They were from at the meeting, and my colleague who just came on, Mr. Wordsworth, who's a councillor in that NDC, he was nominated and chaired the meeting. The resignations of the 6 councillors, it was read out. It was accepted that they would have resigned and stated or would be stated in the minutes of that meeting, the minute of that meeting, and that is statutory meeting. Subsequent to that, I cannot stop saying because there's a lot of activities, right, following this. And
tell us about that.
They had fraudulent vice president. And I was told that they were instructed that they had to go back to serve on the council. So they decided and agreed at that meeting, the councillors that they will rescind the resignations.
Oh, just so? They decided or the council decided?
But they decided at that meeting with the vice president. So we are now moving from the local.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Now moving from the local government organ, which is run and controlled by or guided by the laws of Guyana, chapter 28.
Guys, we are getting some feedback. So I would again encourage that you only have the sound on for the whatever you are connected to come on the program. You might have an additional device on. If you can just not be on the program at the same time with that second device, we're going to have some feedback.
Right.
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Yes. So they were instructed and agreed at that meeting outside of council and its statutory meeting to rescind their resignations. I saw it in Kaicho News and a few other news agencies stating that they would have rescinded and what have you. However, the council would have already sat, the council would have already made their decisions, and the meeting was closed. And 2 days ago, the same chairman that resigned from the council, and Mr. Woodward can shed light on this when I'm through. I'm going to wrap up and allow ordered the now the overseer to write to councillors and state to them that there will be an emergency meeting or a special meeting we call, which will be held tomorrow at 10. And that meeting has no agenda. But we know the agenda of the meeting, which is for them to come and discuss the resignation of these councillors. And at that meeting, they are now planning to say that, as a matter of fact, they do not recognize that they are no longer councillors and chairman and vice chairman of that NDC. They are now saying that they will come to that meeting to say we have rescinded our resignations. But Sharon, it is clear in the Constitution, it is clear in the Local Government Act that once you would have resigned, you're no longer a member of council. Right, but before I get to that part, I'm going to allow Chris to shed some light on the special meeting that is supposed to be at.
Good night, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Go right ahead, Chris. Tell us what has been happening.
It is a real sad story what has been happening within the Rosignol NDC. And this sad story all started out since the PPP would have bullied their way into governance. And as a result of that, their councillors feel empowered. And for some reason of the sort, they started to fight among themselves because they were told and promised high portfolios should they get into office. As a result of that not happening, there has always been a conflict among each other within themselves and the party officials within Region 5. As a result of that now, we received a notice one day that the local government minister will be visiting Region 5. That is on Valentine's Day. Now, it so happened that the minister would have visited Region 5. We're not certain where and whom he would have talked to, but it was alleged that he met with the vendors of the daily market. And they met and they had a discussion. Present there was the overseer for the NDC and all the councillors that are PDP affiliated. We were not invited. That's the coalition councillors. However, stemming from that meeting, it was alleged that some of the PDP councillors were insulted by their minister. And he instructed the councillors and the overseer to move the vendors from the roadside to go and sell within the market. That is the Saturday market and the daily market. The thing about it is that the NDC would have been trying for a very long time to move these vendors off the road.
Chris? Are you with us, sir? Chris might be having some challenges. Viceroy?
Yes, Sharon. Yes, I see Chris.
Chris, are you back with us? I also see we have Carol Smith Joseph with us this evening. Let me invite Carol in. Carol,
Yeah,
a very good
night,
evening.
Sharon.
Welcome.
Good night, Sharon, and thanks for having me.
Go right ahead, guys. Carol, what has been happening at your end there? I know you're not going to let things just happen there.
No, actually, the local government minister in collusion with Barajagdio feels that they can override councils. And these bodies are legally elected bodies, and of such, they are supposed to be allowed to function. Chapter 2802 is clear on this issue. Now, if you have 6 councillors resigning, and those councillors, their letters were sent to the overseer, a statutory meeting was held, the letters were accepted.
Yeah.
It clearly means that those seats are vacant.
Yeah, they're out like so.
Yes, but I don't understand Barajagdio coming to Freedom House, meeting with them and withdrawing. You cannot withdraw your letter at this stage.
That has already been accepted by the council.
Accepted by the council. What Barajagdio needs to know is at this stage, the council is supposed to inform GCOM that there are 6 vacancies.
Yeah.
And whoever the political parties responsible or independent bodies responsible for those seats will be directed by GCOM, which is the constitutional electoral body in this country, as to what should happen in terms of filling it. If it's a constituency seat, they have to be an election, a by-election. If there's a PR seat, they can fill it from the list of names that they would have submitted at the last local government elections. So it's a simple case.
So this is in fact a real assault on democracy.
It is. And that is what has been happening every single day. Now the chairman who is one of the persons that resigned, he wrote a letter to councillors for a special meeting. What's the purpose? He has no authority. And if he's not careful, he can be placed before the magistrate's court, and every day he continues to squat there. He will be liable to a fine, I think it's $620 per day. So these people must understand, they must read chapter 2802 and understand that you just don't walk in and walk out.
Precisely. So what is going to obtain tomorrow?
I think that the councillors should not allow any meeting to be held because the person calling the meeting has no authority. So no attempt to call any statutory meeting or any special meeting should be allowed. And at this stage, the residents of Rossignol, Zealous, and the other councillors should act quickly. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, they should have already dispatched a letter to the overseer condemning the move. The person calling the meeting has no authority to do so.
Because he's no longer chairman, and that is what we want members of the public to understand. You resign, you can't come back.
He sent a resignation. He resigned. Sherrod, I resigned from the RDC. And I couldn't just resign and then decide the next week that I want to go back. It doesn't happen that way. When you resign, you resign.
The PPP themselves would not allow you to come back.
Exactly. Probably they have a chance. Local government elections is due. They can run again. But you have made that decision to resign.
Guys, final thoughts before we go. What is the way forward?
Well, the way forward is clear. Let me just say this, Sherrod. The way forward is clear. No special meeting can be called by a resigned councillor. No special meeting can be called. In that case, the overseer, who is the CEO for the authority, should inform that person that he or she, whoever that person is, has no authority to call a meeting of councillors. And the residents of Rossignol, Zealous, NDC should come out in their numbers and stop an assault on their democracy. The PPP should understand the time is now for them to appoint 6 more people if they can. But they resigned.
Yep. Keep moving. Keep moving.
Yes, keep going up. And I want to read exactly what it says. Vacation of office by elected councillor. And I'm reading from chapter 2802, section 24. If an elected member of a village council fails throughout a period of 3 consecutive months to attend any meeting of the council, unless the failure was due to some reason approved by the council, or by letter under his hand addressed to the chairman of the council, resigns his seat, or is not qualified to be elected, or is disqualified for being, or is disqualified from continuing to be a councillor. It's clear. And at that meeting, the local government ministry, when the letters came and they received the call, they asked how much councillors were present. They were told, and they said the meeting can go on because there is a quorum. So a chairman was appointed to conduct that meeting. So that meeting is a statutory meeting. And the letters of resignation were read and accepted by the council.
True and
So
correct.
there is
True and correct.
no way. And I call on the councillors there to act within the law. Do not permit a person who has
Act within the
resigned.
law and obey the Constitution.
Exactly. We are seeing from day one, since March of last year, these people are flouting our Constitution. They have no regards to our Constitution. And I think enough is enough, Sherrod. We have got to put an end to this thing and end it now.
Well said. Enough is enough. Forward ever, backward never. Chris, Viceroy.
Right, Chris. So I would like to support Miss Carol Smith Joseph here on the point where she's saying that there will be no meeting. We will not allow, and the councillors will for the APNU AFC who will sit there tomorrow will not allow any meeting to be had with those resigned members, because they are no longer councillors. So they can sit in the waiting lounge or the waiting area where the taxpayers normally go to pay their rates and taxes, and they can wait there, but they cannot sit in a meeting that is to be had to discuss matters concerning the NDC, because they are no longer members of council. And further to that, as she said,
MP Jordan, let me just stop you there. There shouldn't be any meeting because
Correct.
the person calling the meeting is illegal. So there shouldn't be any meeting.
Correct.
There cannot be a special meeting. And if your council calls a special meeting, it has to be for a purpose. And the letter that you receive or the notice thereof has to indicate the purpose of your special meeting. And in this case, if the person has resigned, he or she has no authority to call any meeting. So there cannot be any meeting there tomorrow. And the councillors there should prevent such a meeting from, it's illegal.
Definitely. So that is exactly what I was getting to. That the meeting cannot be had because of the person who called the meeting. And as a matter of fact, the letter that that was written to the councillors, the letter has no agenda. So there's no agenda for the meeting tomorrow. So what are they going to discuss tomorrow? So clearly there shouldn't be any meeting.
Guys, thanks very much. I have an expert standing by, and I want to get to that guest, Viceroy Jordan, Carol Smith Joseph, and Chris Wordsworth. Guys, we're going to be watching, and we hope that you come back and let us know what happens tomorrow or what has happened. Folks,
Thank you,
stay
Sharon.
vigilant and stay woke.
Right. Thank you, Sharon.
Great. I want to welcome at this time my other guest this evening, the GCOM Commissioner, the one and only, the expert on local government systems, Vincent Alexander. I don't think he might like too much this lofty introduction. A very good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sharon.
Let me just say this. I grew up from a little boy hearing you talk about local government systems and the importance of such systems. I don't want to give away your age by any means because you look great. But you have heard those councillors, those persons with an interest in the development of Region 5 and the success of the council talk about how the government, through the Ministry of Local Government, is operating as it concerns local government. And Rosignol is just one instance. So let's start there with what is transpiring at Rosignol NDC. The adjoining village is slipping me, but for all intents and purposes, the Rosignol NDC. These 5, 6 councillors who resigned and now they have rescinded their own resignations after the council has accepted it. Explain that for us.
Well, Sherwood, I don't know that one could rescind one's resignation if subsequent to the resignation, the council met and the clerk duly declared those seats vacant. Once those seats have been duly declared vacant, then there's no provision for rescinding of one's resignation. That's it. You're no longer a councillor. And I can go on to say that you cannot be reappointed because what the law provides for is for the list of candidates to be exhausted in filling vacant seats. And those resignations by law created
Mr. Alexander is having some
there's no
trouble with
basis
his
for
audio.
those councils to be reinstated in any way.
So this administration has been talking, for instance, you hear them on and off about an assault on democracy, but this activity here, this frontal, assault here is by the same definition an assault on democracy at the local government level.
Undoubtedly.
I think we have lost Mr. Alexander there, but no doubt he's going to be back with us. Folks of you who are now joining us, we invite you to share the live stream. We are talking about the government assault since the 2nd of August on the local government system, whether it's at we saw recently at Bartica or whether it is at Rosignol. Sir, apologies for that. Welcome back. You are stating.
Yes, as I said, there's absolutely no basis, and it is in fact a breach of the democratic processes. In this instance, the processes for the constitution of the country, which is fundamental to the democratic process.
And what we're seeing here at Rosignol NDC is what we saw at Region 2, the Nile Scotia NDC, and even more grave, what we saw at the CDC, I think it's the Community Development Council coming out of Region 7 recently, where you have persons who would have submitted themselves to a democratic process to be elected as community leaders. And by the virtue of fate, or people just don't want the PPP representatives, they didn't get themselves elected. The PPP now comes and remove the elected officials and now install their own people after an election has already been concluded. Ms. Alexander, you've been in this system long. Explain this to us. This assault on democracy.
The question of the CDCs is quite different. CDCs are not formal local authorities. They are not provided for any local government act. CDCs are essentially voluntary bodies.
But by the same token, you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. If you say we are going to do an election, then you can't.
I want to get to that.
Great.
Because I think that in Guyana we have misused this institutional organization called CDC. The CDC is a voluntary organization of people, and in any geographic area, any number of people can form a community group of their liking.
Yeah.
This is not something that has to be registered with anyone else, because it is not a formal state or government institution. If at all a CDC wants to be registered, then that CDC can be registered under the Friendly Societies Act as a voluntary coming together of people. And therefore, there are two positions here. If they are registered under the Friendly Societies Act, then there could be legal intervention by the registrar of the societies if they are in breach of the law which regulates friendly societies. If they are not registered, there is really no legal body that has the regulatory authority in terms of the operation. I know that various regimes have sought through the Ministry of Local Government to register community development groups. But the fact of the matter is that registered or not registered in these circumstances, any group of citizens in a particular geographical area can come together to form a community group, which may be for general purposes or for specific purposes. It is for that group itself, if it seeks to have an election, to invite someone on their behalf to conduct those elections. No one
Mr. Alexander, you may have two devices on. You may be on with me on one and maybe viewing the program on another one. Ensure the other one might be on mute because we're getting some feedback. I mean, just in case.
I have
right
only
ahead.
one. Just
right
let me see. I have only one device in front of me. So I can't.
Go right ahead, sir.
So I'm saying that no external group of people or person can intervene in the conduct of the affairs of a CDC, particularly if it is not a CDC registered under the Friendly Societies Act. This is a voluntary group of people, and they reserve the right to conduct their affairs in a manner that they see just and fair once they're not doing anything illegal. And so there's a number of issues here. One, you can have more than one CDC in the same geographic area because it is a voluntary coming together of people in the geographic area for a particular purpose that they themselves would have defined. So I find it strange that a CDC could have met, elect its officials, and then some external force, in this instance, apparently the government steps in to instate some other set of people. If they want, they can take those people and go and form a CDC in the same geographic area. And of course, issues will arise about the way in which the government seeks to deal with one voluntary group and to exclude or discriminate against another voluntary group. That's the problem that we are potentially faced with when the government seeks to register CDCs and not to treat people who have come together voluntarily under the constitutional provisions of the right of association as if they indeed have that right and therefore can represent the interests of their people. So I think we have to be very, very conscious of the nature of CDCs, as they should be, and the fact that they are voluntary, non-governmental organizations that do not come under of necessity the control of any ministry.
Mr. Alexander, let us talk about the broad approach of this government to local governance. We've seen what is happening at Rossignol, Nile Scotia, what's happening at the CDC in Region 7. We have seen in some instances in Georgetown, Linden, where government is now telling you how you must spend this subvention, trying to dictate to the NDC, the RDC, the municipality, what they should do, who they should elect, how they should spend their monies. Is this a creeping dictatorship? Is it walking or is it running yet?
I have had reason in the past to send a letter to the press indicating that the Minister of Local Government has absolutely no authority under the laws of Ghana to indicate to a local authority, be it municipality or neighborhood council, that they cannot raise their rates. They cannot raise their rates. That authority resides purely in the local government under the amended Local Government Act. So what we have seen recently is a minister who is trying to resort to powers previously available, and in fact to resort to powers never available. For all intents and purposes, as we speak, local authorities are supposed to be regulated by the Local Government Commission. The commission was established for the purpose of regulating staff, regulating the relationship between local authorities, and dealing with internal conflict resolution in those local authorities. The minister has absolutely no authority in that regard under the reform provisions of the Local Government Act. So that one has to ask the question, why is it that the commission has not been appointed? I think the life of the commission came to an end. And what we have is a minister trying to step into the shoes of a commission when the law had no such provision. We know that in 1969, a provision was made for a local government service commission, and that commission had never been appointed, and that the minister in those circumstances exercised the authority of the commission. The present commission is not the 1969 commission. The present commission is a commission provided for under the Constitution and does not provide in any way for the minister to step into the shoes of the commission. What the minister ought to do is to ensure that the commission is duly appointed. And so we have a lot of actions being taken. And you made specific reference to the question of how the councils expend their money. That's another contentious area. There are various ways in which councils could be funded. Councils can be funded in the first instance by their own revenue sources. That is, tax and rates, fees, and things of that sort. And those are things that they determine. Secondly, councils should be funded by what I would call a subvention under the Fiscal Transfers Act. Under that act, all that is specified is that the central government should make an allocation, an appropriation for distribution across local authorities. The local authorities, in turn, should be submitting at the end of each year, around November, information pertaining to their population size, to their geographic size, and to their own rate of collection. That information is plugged into a formula which is a part of the Fiscal Transfers Act. That formula is then plugged into the total sum allocated, and on that basis, councils should receive their subvention. There's no provision in that act for the government to dictate how those monies are spent. Those monies are supposed to be given towards whatever budget the council come up with. Outside.
Precisely. We're having some challenges with Mr. Alexander's audio and video. Are we going to hold for him?
You cannot in any way substitute the conditions of a conditional grant when you are disbursing the monies that you're supposed to acquire under the Fiscal Transfers Act. And so I think that what we are seeing is a situation where the Fiscal Transfer Act is not being observed, and the ministry is stepping in to impose a regime which is not a lawful regime for the purpose of fiscal transfers.
Mr. Alexander, I think what you've articulated there for us is that the PPP has no interest in local governance, really and truly, as is articulated by the Constitution. Is this the reason why they have not allocated any funds, for instance, for house-to-house registration? What are your thoughts?
No, I think house-to-house registration is something quite different. It's not purely about local government. In fact, it will affect local government elections.
That is the point that I'm raising.
It's all about retaining a bloated list, a list that will then facilitate persons who are not present through various machinations being able to cast votes. And therefore, that again interferes with the fundamentals of our democratic system. Because notwithstanding all the things that have been said, the trash that's been said, the authorized authorities in this country provided GCOM with responses to queries which authenticated the fact that those lists where people were ticked off of having voted had people ticked off who are dead in some instances, and other instances who were not in the country. So notwithstanding what anybody says, the foreign observers, the government, and all of them, it is irrefutable that ticked off on election day were names of persons who have subsequently been shown not to have been present in this country, either by virtue of having died or by virtue of having left the country and not having returned. And therefore, we have a fundamental issue that has to be resolved.
That in and of itself is shocking.
And I must go on to say that if one reads the CARICOM report, those who were the observers at elections, one of the very first things that they say on the recommendations is that there should be house-to-house registration. That's a recommendation of the CARICOM observers. You know, we have a way of quoting these people in convenience, quoting what suits your
selectively.
Selectively. But if you were to look at all that they said, one of the things that they said unequivocally is the need for house-to-house registration, and that should be undertaken soon as possible after the elections have been completed. So we really have a situation where the provisions for democratic governance are not being observed. But I always like to make the point that I go beyond these provisions for democratic governance, because I think in our plural society, even those provisions and what they give us as a result is irrelevant to the realization of real democracy, because it does not provide for the kind of inclusion and therefore the kind of representation of all Guyanese. This democracy provides for one man, one vote. It does not take into consideration that we have communities of people and that those communities would like to express their views as a community. And in the absence of that opportunity, then they are not being represented and therefore are not integral to the so-called democracy.
Great. Mr. Alexander, we're approaching program time, and unfortunately we'll have to leave it there. But it's always great to have you in the ring and picking your brain on these many issues. Anything you want to leave with us before we go?
Well, I just want to, you mentioned closure in your earlier comments. What took place there was also unlawful. The councillor the seat was declared vacant because of continuous non-attendance. The council met, declared the seat vacant, and there you had a minister doing two things: attempting to appoint a new town clerk. That is the function, a new overseer. That's the function of the commission. And to have that overseer reappoint a councillor whose seat had been declared vacant. You know, we have a situation in this country where for the last 2 weeks, we're talking about the past. We're talking about the past. We're talking about March the 2nd and August the 2nd. March the 2nd and August the 2nd, we can talk about that. But we are talking about it in a way to distract people from the actual occurrences today. March the 2nd already happened. August the 2nd already happened. And we are talking to distract people from what is happening, which should not be happening.
Thank you very much again. Thank you very much again, GCOM Commissioner Vincent Alexander, for gracing us with your presence this evening, and again for walking us through these very complex, sometimes, issues. Thank you very much again, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. Folks, we still have a couple other issues to touch on just before we go. Again, thanks to Mr. Vincent Alexander for coming by this evening. Just a couple of things to touch on before we go. We're watching program time, and of course, having dealt with all of the issues that we have dealt with thus far, we are saying good night to all except, I'm not going to tell you right off the bat, it's a good night to all except Nigel Darmlal, the Minister of Local Government, because it is on his watch that all of this foolishness is happening. And the folks are already tired of Nigel Darmlal, and his acolytes are already tired of him. So we're saying this evening a good night to all except Mr. Nigel Darmlal, folks, except Mr. Nigel Darmlal, because we see the attack on the local government system in Rosignol, in Region 7 with the CDC issue, Niles Scotia, City Hall, other NDCs and RDCs dictating how they should spend their money, trying to subvert system. So a good night to all except the entire government, but in particular, this Jagabat, Nigel Darmlal. Nigel Darmlal. Folks, a couple of other issues for us to go through just before we go this evening that we want to ensure that we touch on and to bring you update on tonight. And let's get to that. We want to touch again on COVID-19. We're seeing these numbers are spiking, folks. And again, we ask you to do what we've been asking to do every evening: to social distance, wear your mask, sanitize, watch the groups that you're liming in. Folks, we have now 51 new cases of COVID-19. We've had one additional death today. Total active cases, 664. Guys, the government don't care about you whether you live or you die. You understand me? You have to take your health into your own hands. Tomorrow, for instance, we are seeing is a date set aside tomorrow afternoon for parliamentarians to receive their vaccine. Folks, I ain't receiving no vaccine. I'm not taking any vaccines, right? And it's up to the other parliamentarians whether they want to take vaccination under this fraudulent, illegitimate administration, who themselves have not taken the vaccine as yet. The Minister of Health already says he ain't taking no vaccine. And I ain't see the ministers take any. I see the fraudulent Vice President run to front and the President. But I haven't seen the others as yet. So in terms of things that are happening, that are coming up, there's that that's happening tomorrow. Members of Parliament are scheduled to take their vaccine. How can I, as a member of Parliament, take a vaccine and my wife unvaccinated, my children unvaccinated? That's how things operate. And there are lots of people in this country who are on the front lines, who need that vaccination, who are on the front lines and need that vaccination. This government is so chaotic and confusing in how they're operating, how they're doing this, how they are managing COVID-19 and the vaccination process. They are so chaotic and all over the place. Folks, also happening tomorrow, there is a protest activity in front of the CID headquarters beginning at 8:45. This is a protest against black prosecution. It must end now, and so we're looking forward for your involvement there as well. 8:45 a.m. it starts outside CID headquarters in Georgetown, Eve Leary, folks. CID headquarters in Ivleary. And the special segment we're introducing on our program is the editorial. Is our editorial, and tonight we want to focus on the fact that we have not have had any post-cabinet briefings. That is what we're focusing on this evening. The fact that we have not had any post-cabinet briefings, ladies and gentlemen. That is what one of the things that we are focusing on in our editorial segment. So, folks, in case you have missed it, in the many stumbles and fumbles that has epitomized the 6 months that has been the PPP's installed administration, from Onij Waldron's lying to the National Assembly about her dual citizenship, to Kwame McCoy's assault on a member of the National Assembly, to COVID-19 running rampant, unmitigated, there has been no post-cabinet briefings and no cabinet secretary appointed for that matter. Ladies and gentlemen, cabinet press briefings are supposed to bring transparency to cabinet decisions, such as appointment to boards, gazetted orders, arrival of new diplomats, award of contracts, and more. The coalition government held post-cabinet press briefings every week, and every week the country heard about the award of contracts, etc. Now, award of contracts are being selectively revealed on Newsroom. Also, post-cabinet briefings give the press corps a chance to cross-examine a high-ranking member of government. Yep, a high-ranking member of government every week about important government decisions and developments, the government's plans and its progress. Every week, under the coalition government, the population heard about what major decisions were being made at cabinet. Now we are none the wiser. It is like we are a student from the University of Iflot. If you know, you know. Only governments with something to hide operates in this manner, ladies and gentlemen. Additionally, we have noted Gail Teixeira signs as cabinet secretary, but this is illegal and albeit unconstitutional to do so, and she still does not appear in front of the press to explain decisions like senior member of government Joseph Harmon used to do every week under the David Granger-led administration. This certainly brings into question the constitutional role of Parliamentary and Government Affairs Minister, who has been usurping the functions and duties of the public office of the Secretary of Cabinet. Ladies and gentlemen, constitutionally, Article 117 provides for the public office of Secretary to the Cabinet. The duties and functions of this office are inclusive of arranging the business and keeping the minutes of the Cabinet, and for conveying the decisions of the Cabinet to the appropriate person or authority. Teixeira, by September 11, 2020's notification in the official gazette, is listed as a Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance. Article 232 of the Constitution provides that public office means an office of emolument in the public service, and further, Article 232, subsection 5 of the Constitution expressly excludes the service of a minister as service in the public service. Again, the act of Mr. Teixeira in signing documents which convey the decisions of cabinet are unconstitutional and ultra-virus and of no effect. Many of those cabinet documents relate to, for instance, the appointments of state boards, the appointment of the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, NPTA, and the Go Invest Board. And again, her actions are unconstitutional, ultra-virus, and of no effect. What the coalition said on August 5th, ladies and gentlemen, 2020, is as true today as it was then. The nation, I quote, "The nation can expect to be besieged by nothing but blind loyalty to the diktats of Jack Dio, from the president to the most junior minister. The new cabinet, illegitimate as it is, will be nothing more than a rubber stamp of Jack Dio's maniacal control freakism." This cabinet is a creature of Jack Leo. Today, Guyanese are witness to what APNU AFC has warned of, that the PPP has not in any way changed. It remains a one-man authoritarian cult, and this has now been formalized with this fraudulent de facto cabinet. Perhaps that in and of itself answers the question why this tremendously important part of a transparent, accountable governing process has been missing for 6 months and counting. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining In the Ring. Do stay safe. Thanks for joining.